Jennifer, welcome in. Yaylin, hello. I don't know what's happening. We just started the podcast. I don't know what's going on, everybody. But tonight we're exploring topics that you want to discuss. So this is your opportunity to join us. If you're listening to this after the fact, please come hang out on TikTok Live every Friday night when we record these podcasts. Also, if you haven't yet, please subscribe, do all those different things that you do when you like, follow, and share a podcast wherever you're listening to this. So where are we going tonight? Earlier, before we pushed record, we were talking about a bunch of different things. Michelle's got, do spirits get trapped on Earth? If so, why? I love that question, Michelle. A lot of these questions that you guys are going to throw up in the chat, please continue to do so, and we'll get to them as they come up. And I apologize for the ones that we had earlier. I know CN brought up empaths and protection and boundaries, and I think that's a really good topic that I want to discuss as well. But let's just go straight forwards. Do spirits get trapped on Earth? And if so, why? I don't believe that they do. I'll explain to you what my belief system is around spirits and what happens when we die. But again, I think it's important to understand that it's my belief system, and that to itself is kind of like, take it for that, right? Take mine for mine and make yours yours and figure out what yours is. But I think when we pass away, I don't think there's any sort of like in-between phase. I don't think there's some sort of limbo. I think we quite literally just have moments where we wake up from this consciousness and into the other consciousness. Once we wake up into the other consciousness, I think there's some adjustment time, but it's not like we're left trapped or something like that. So no, I don't think they get trapped here on Earth. And I think if we experience something that feels like some sort of trapped spirit or ghost or something along those lines, I think that's us creating something in our reality in order to help us wake up more. Now that's a big rabbit hole in regards to like what I just said as far as that goes, because I truly believe that everything that we're experiencing when it comes to these, I don't even know what to call them, other experiences, I think we create those so that we wake up. It's like believing in something more than just this reality, right? I hope that helps, Michelle. Feel free to drop more questions in the chat as we go along. And again, CN, I hope you're still in here. Empaths, protection, and boundaries. I want to talk about empaths for a little bit because I think that that's a really huge thing that a lot of people who are more spiritually inclined or who work with energy or, I mean, yes, that's a big label there to kind of think that other people aren't empathic, but I find that people that are more in tune oftentimes had to be because it was a survival instinct. That was the case for me. I think that was the case for a lot of people. I think naturally empathic people are in tune to their environment initially because of that need for survival. And then you create and develop that sense in order to survive, but it also gives you access to that other realm where you can tune in and tap in and connect to other things. I've had to learn over the course of my life that having that natural ability and being able to do exactly that, be able to sense things when I walk into rooms, I can tell when people are upset, I can, it's like being able to quite literally walk into a room of crowded people and just feel the energy throughout the room and the space and the different people. And having that ability has been a blessing and a curse. And it's something that I've had to learn how to, trying to think of how to articulate this, because I've had a lot of experience over the course of my life of not doing this in a healthy way. But essentially what it is it's recognizing that ability, that sense is a good way to put it, that thing that I'm tapping into, it serves a purpose, but I have control over when I want to use it or when I don't want to use it. And I don't put myself into situations where I have to turn that sense off, if that makes sense. So I don't really spend a lot of time in situations where that sense is going to be overloaded because I don't want to turn that thing off. I really like having that thing turned on. I think it's an important part of existence and life. And I think it's directly connected to my nervous system. And so my ability to be in tune with my environment also means I have to be in tune with myself. And I don't want to shut either of those things off at any time. So it's learning how to be in tune with it within myself so that I can not control, but so that I can choose And this is where boundaries really comes into it as well, CN, so that I can shape and mold my life so that I can continually create spaces for myself where I don't have to tune that part off or turn that part off. Does that make sense? I don't know if that was kind of the way that you were going with that question or not, or that topic, but let me know. Kirsten, have you ever refused a reading for someone? Yeah, I have before. You know, the truth of it is it's sometimes people come into situations, and I've done this before too. We all do this. I think I've had people come in and have reading or come to a reading before where they have a very clear expectation of what they're wanting the experience to be. And oftentimes when that happens, it doesn't really jive because it's almost like they're forcing the experience. And I've had to just tell people, I don't think this is a good fit. Like, stop it in the middle of the experience and be like, I don't think that this is a good fit for you. And then, sorry, we have to end. So yeah, it's not, I don't feel like I think there's a person for everybody, and I'm not everybody's person. And I think that at the same time, every interaction is a gift to some extent. That's something that I had to learn how to be able to navigate. A lot of times in the past, when I was learning how to read and learning how to connect and learning how to work with energy and learning how to do that in capacity with other people, what I had to learn about was, again, my own boundaries. It doesn't do me any good to force myself to try to work with somebody when it's not a good connection with that person. Like, if we just don't really vibe, it's one thing, like, we don't have to agree on everything, but do you know what I mean? You feel energy, and it's when it's not there, it's not there. And I've had to learn that it's okay to say that. It's not an indication that anything's wrong, or that they did something wrong, or that they're not open enough, or that I'm doing something wrong, or none of those things are the case. It's just simply everybody's not a fit for everybody. Yeah, Ariana, welcome in. If you've never been here before, live on Friday nights, we record this podcast. You can go tune into it on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and YouTube, everywhere you find podcasts. It's called The Deep Blue. Tonight's just Q&A. But on other nights when I'm on here live, I do card readings. I'm a spiritual teacher and a channeler. I'm so glad that helps, CN. Yeah, it's interesting, right? It's getting really good at not recognizing when I need to turn that empathic thing and bring it in and close it off. I mean, if there's a situation where when I say I have to go to something, or I have to be at something, like sometimes we'll go to events where there's lots of people because I want to go to the event because not because there's lots of people, but because it's something that I want to go to. So in that situation, I will be still open, but also closed. I don't know if that makes sense. I know it does, actually. I know we can all relate to that. There's a layer that is still kind of closed off, and you can just feel that, especially when you have the ability to tap in. I think we all have this, by the way. I don't think this is just special people, I think we're all empathic. I think we're all connected. It's just removing the filters and the blocks that we unfortunately get over the course of our life. How we doing, Miss Momo, Lori? Any other questions? Feel free to drop them in the chat. Bring your real question, not your real questions. I don't mean it that way. Not these fake questions. Keep dropping. No, bring the issues that you're dealing with as well, please. What do you need help with? Where are you stuck in life? What's coming up for you? Thank you, everybody, for being here as well. Yes, Ian, absolutely. The best way that I have found, CN, is, first and foremost, I guess I got to articulate the question. That's the thing I always have to remember when we're recording this podcast. Not everybody's reading the chat with me. But CN says, yes, need to practice. I feel my senses have really sharpened. So what I find helps me the most with being in tune, not just to tap in and connect so that I can use it in this space to help people and read and channel and do all the different things, but for my own internal process and my own ability to just be in tunement with source and connection, is really, really getting in tune with all of my basic senses. I was actually playing around with this week, where I was eliminating the sense of sight. I put on an eye mask. We've got these blindfolds that we'll use, my wife and I, that we'll use to meditate. And this blindfold is super, you can't see anything. It blocks out everything. And so I was walking around the house doing dishes, cleaning up, just doing everything that I would normally do. But I put this blindfold on because it forced me, obviously, to like really slow down. It was a really interesting experience. I'm going to do it some more. But that's what I'm talking about, is like getting so tapped in and connected to my senses, my sight, my sound. Sometimes I'll sit outside and I'll just play around with the ability to control the sense of hearing so that I can tune into different sounds, open up my hearing, close in my hearing. All of these things we do subconsciously all the time. They're our body's natural way of regulation as well as control when it comes to our nervous system. So you have the ability to manipulate these things. You just have to bring awareness to it. So I love practicing and playing in those spaces of, you can do it with sight, where you can just play around with your peripheral. Everybody can do this right now, wherever you're at. Unless you're driving, don't do it if you're driving. But just play around with your peripheral. I've got my arms out to my side as far as I can kind of reach. But you're going to stretch your arms out and just find your periphery where you can see each finger, your left and your right hand. And then you want to play around with just adjusting it by closing one hand and bringing it closer. And then closing the other. Sorry, not closing one hand, closing one eye. Just play. It's literally play, CN. Play around with sight, play around with touch, play around with that ability to get still and then feel the room around you, right? Tap into the space that's around you. All of those really simple, basic things that we do naturally already that we kind of forget about. Tune into them and turn them up and start practicing doing that process of turning up those senses that you're already naturally connected to. And that's going to help you access all of the other senses and learn how to turn those up. It's the same process of being able to like dial in your hearing and open and expand your hearing or your sight or all of these things that we're talking about, sense of smell, same thing. That ability and the way that you do that, and think about the way that you do that. Like, let's do this with hearing right now. Get quiet and just see what you can hear in the room and stretch and expand your hearing. And then you can feel how you can do that. And we think about it from this lens and perspective, like we're doing something, especially with the hearing. But truthfully, what we're doing is we're tuning other things out and turning on our listening. And that's what you're doing when you're tapping in and connecting to source, is you're tuning other things out and turning on this other frequency, this other channel. So just practice and play around with the ones that you have already. They're also going to be the ones that you use when you tap in and connect to all the other senses, because you have to be in tune with your body in order to wake up those other things. Yes, Ian, you're so welcome. I just have fun with it. I think the more we can treat it like kids and just have fun with it, I think the better off we're going to be. It's a playful space, right? Anytime I'm doing energy work, anytime I'm tapping in and channeling, anytime I'm trying to connect to that space, I try to connect through that spot where I'm bringing my inner child with me, bringing that same childlike energy in my imagination so that I'm lighting up all of those, not just neural pathways and those different things, but also quite literally that energetic part of me. I want to bring that part to the space because that's the part that really comes alive. And truthfully, that's the part that's going to be able to see, hear, experience. It's the subtler side of things, remember. It's not that really loud, conscious part of us. It's the subconscious part of us. Insane Kitten, can you help me with DID versus INFS? The DID, I believe I understand, Insane. I'm not sure about the INFS. What's up, Ryan? Welcome in, brother. Throw up any questions or topics tonight for the podcast, sir. DID, Insane, dissociative identity disorder, and then INFS. I'm not sure what that one is. If you want to articulate it or explain it more, I'm happy to talk about them. Again, from my perspective, I'm not a therapist. That's super important. Okay, I didn't know if you were talking about IFS or not. The N part, I'm very familiar with internal family systems. So I'm glad that you're bringing that up. What's up, Libra? So you have DID and you're talking about, what's the question then? Are you familiar with IFS? If so, is it like, are you concerned of losing yourself in that process? Sometimes parts work can get a little slippery unless you have, I think help helps a lot in the beginning. I know help helps a lot in the beginning. Is that what it is, Insane Kitten? Or Insane Kit? It's Insane Kitten. Oh, perfect. You have therapy twice a week. I love it. Yeah, awesome. Definitely be in therapy for sure. IFS, if nobody else has ever heard of that before, it's internal family systems. I'm trying to remember the guy's name that Richard Schwartz, Dick Schwartz, I think is his name. And he's a therapist. The truth of it is it's a way to navigate that internal voice that we all have. And it's the way to process those internal voices through the lens of you're the observer being able to engage and interact. And we all have these different parts that we can talk to and interact with because they show up. I know, Ryan, it's totally the Schwartz is strong on me. Did you know also, quick rabbit hole, they're making a Spaceballs 2? Have you heard about this? Josh Glad. Everybody, do we know who Josh Glad is? If you don't know who Josh Glad is, I'm trying to think. It doesn't matter. Josh Glad's is amazing. But he had a channeled dream. I heard him on who was he on? I think it was on Fallon. It was on one of the late nights. And he was talking about how he went to bed and got this whole download of the script for Spaceballs 2, woke up and wrote it, and then was able to call Mel Brooks, who was originally the creator of Spaceballs, and sent him the script. And Mel Brooks was like, I've been waiting for this for 30 years. And they're making it. So that's a quick rabbit hole. Isn't that cool? I don't know if you'd heard that. Go find the clip. It's awesome. He tells the story much better. But he legit tells it through that lens and perspective of I got this downloaded script that came to me in the middle of the night. So I thought that was super awesome. So have you started IFS Insane? Have you started that internal family systems yet? And you're afraid that you're going to lose yourself in it? Yeah, I found it to be incredibly, not just incredibly healing, but it's quite literally kind of a foundational component to my healing. I work with all of my parts so much now because of IFS. It really helped me cultivate a relationship with my inner child as well, that really deep-seated inner part that I'm connected to. And that alone has just completely shifted and changed how I approach everything in life. So I think if you're already in therapy, talk to your therapists about it, or talk to your therapist about it, because they're going to be the best to help you navigate it. It may even help with the DID. But again, if you're already in therapy, talk to your therapist. It might not be the best. Did they recommend IFS? Or are you thinking about it? Again, feel free to drop any questions in the chat. We record this podcast live on Friday nights, and when we don't have guests on, we like to do these, I don't know why I keep saying we, I like to do these Q&A episodes. Sometimes I'll pick a topic and riff on it all night long. Boy, insane. The other thing that I would say is, on my path and on my journey, sorry, everybody that's not reading the chat, Insane mentions that they're pondering it. They haven't started IFS therapy yet, but they've been pondering on it for a while. And I think the things that keep popping up in our space are the things that we're supposed to do. So if you've been pondering on it for a while, I would invite you to keep not just pondering on it, but start going towards it, because there's probably something there for you. It's probably something that's going to help you. Oh, yeah, you heard me mention it earlier today. I talk about it all the time because it quite literally helped so much. We all have these internal voices, and it's easy to just chunk it all into the ego. I think there's a lot of people that just chunk it all into the ego, and it's like that internal voice that's not me is the ego. And yes, that's a component to it. However, when you really start to explore the process of it's not just the ego. I've got a lot of wounded parts inside of me that will almost take over at times. I'll talk about it through the lens of grabbing the microphone. It's like my little 4-year-old will grab the microphone, or the wounded 14-year-old, or I've even got like a 35-year-old that thinks he knows everything and is an adult who still wants to like show up sometimes. And all I'm doing when I recognize these parts and they show up in a sense, and I acknowledge and like, hold on a minute. In some way, I'm dysregulated right now. My nervous system is off. I'm not feeling myself, and I can feel a reaction coming. And then that voice or that part or the emotion that comes up inside of me is a defensive part. It's a protective part. And truthfully, it's probably because there's something that's being triggered deeper down inside. And that's what IFS helped me with, was understanding where all of those wounded, triggered parts were. And then again, cultivating a way to communicate and connect with them and work with them completely. Oh my goodness. Kirsten asks, did you start healing before you had children or after? After. Significantly after. I had kids really young. I had my first by the time I was, hold on, I'm trying to remember. I was young, like 20, 21. No need for IFS, you do EMDR. That's what your therapist told you, Ryan. I love it. EMDR is great too. I'd say do it all. Throw it all at it. I threw everything at it's like everything and the kitchen sink to try to heal. Kirsten, I don't think it's that question itself too, Kirsten. Did you start healing before you had children or after? I think it's the same kind of context of, we're never going to heal everything. It's like, we should heal ourselves before we get into relationships, right? Ideally, you want to be in a relationship before, you want to be healed in a relationship rather than bringing all of your baggage to a relationship. But it's the same thing with kids, where that relationship, the relationship that you have with your children, the process of having children and going through that experience is going to stir up parts of yourself, regardless of whether or not you're healed. It's going to stir up the things inside that could have only been stirred up by the experience of having children. So I think it's great to have an immense amount of work so that you have the emotional maturity to navigate what it is to have a child. But that was not me. I had to learn along the way. And then a lot of what I've learned later on in life, especially when my kids started becoming teenagers and moving out of the house, was when it was truthfully easier to start focusing on some things and be able to dive in deeper into healing. And unfortunately, that dynamic kind of like sucks, because I did a lot of healing after I had done a lot of detrimental things as a parent because I wasn't healed. And I've had to process that, and I've had to sit with that, and it's hard. And that's another part, almost the wounded parent part of me that wants to sit around and be sad and depressed and angry at myself and just feeling so broken because, what did I do to my kids if I, hadn't have done this and hadn't have done that. And so I acknowledge that part and sit with that part and do my best, but I don't allow that emotional part of me. And it's not the emotional part of me. I let emotions take me over all the time. I don't allow that part to take over completely. And I have before in the past, and it's a hard battle to come back from. Hold on, I'm scrolling up for some more of these questions. My eldest is turning 22, and boy, do I wish I knew. Right, Kirsten, same thing. My oldest is 25. 25 or 26. Goodness, she's 26 this year. Drives me crazy. I can't believe she's that old. Yeah, and it's hard. But my healing in the beginning, a lot of what really drove me to heal and change was I wanted to be a better parent for my children. And I truly believe, because I could see as an adult how I was still learning from my parents, I was just seeing it through the lens of learning from them, continually to learn from my parents what I did not want to do, right? My parents continually show me how not to be a parent. They're really, really good at that. And so I think that I can continually heal and change and evolve, and that will, my kids will still reap the benefits of that, even if they're no longer still living with me and young kids that I'm raising and growing up and shaping. I think they still have the ability to be shaped and molded by me. And I still do my best to show up every day kind of with that in mind. Ryan asks, how can we create our reality when we want nothing to do with someone and yet we have to find balance with said person? Okay, Ryan, this is a big topic. So there's something in your reality that you don't want, but yet it's there. Is that right? Hold on, you followed it up with, I forgive my dad for not changing. I understand it now. Okay, I think that was a follow-up to what we were talking about. One question at a time, Ryan. I think a lot of kids wish to see their parents change for the better. Rarely does that happen. Right, Kirsten? Yeah, I really try to bring new levels of, like, as I emotionally mature and evolve, I try to meet my children at a new emotionally mature place. And it's been interesting because a lot of times I'm catching up to where they already were. Okay, Ryan. So when you're creating your reality, and just to catch everybody up who might not, because Ryan is he's an OG in here. But I have a belief system around creating our realities all the time. It's not just something that we occasionally choose to do, or like if we get really spiritual and dive into it, then we create our realities. I think we're doing it all the time. So then the question becomes, why is there something in my reality, or how do I deal with something in my reality that I don't want there? And what the hell if I'm the one that's creating it? So truthfully, Ryan, and I guess I shouldn't say in your situation, I'm assuming I'm understanding about your situation and what you're talking about, but it's also something that I know a lot of people can relate to. So it's like, especially with relationships. So how do you deal with somebody that you unfortunately still have to deal with when you don't want to deal with that person anymore? So a lot of times this is in regards to children as well, right? After divorces, I've been divorced before. It's a terrible thing. It's incredibly difficult and challenging. And my heart goes out to everybody and anyone, no matter what the situation is. It's just a difficult thing to go through. But at the end of the day, Ryan, you have to remember that you are still consciously choosing your reality, even if it doesn't feel like it. Because the truth of it is, if you no longer wanted that person in your life, it would just require you to make choices that you don't want to make. So it's not simply a matter of like, how do I deal with this thing? It boils down to, what do you actually want to deal with? What type of reality do you want to create for yourself? What type of boundaries do you want to set up? And what type of relationship do you actually want to have with that person? Because you might think you have to have a relationship with that person, but you really don't. It just feels like you have to. At the end of the day, it always boils down to free will and choice. You're in full creation mode all the time. We just look and see, if I create that reality, it's going to result in these things that I'm going to have to do. And then it's like, well, I don't want to have to do those things. Great, don't create that reality. And then if you get stuck in that space, I get stuck in that space all the time. That the paradox between the rock and the hard spot, where it's like, I don't want this reality that's being created, and I don't want to do the hard choices around this reality that I'm afraid to do, but I can't see a path through this. Open up to the idea that there's an answer that you just can't see because you're still so focused on the one thing that you're looking at. So relax from this space and let go of hyperfixating on the one problem that you're trying to address, and recognize that by letting it go, you'll open up. It goes back to that thing we were talking about earlier in the episode, where when you're hyperfixated, tunnel visioned, focused on something, right, your vision's not fully expanded. So breathe, relax, and recognize that there's a way to move through this situation where you actually get to create exactly what you want. You're just looking at it from a binary perspective right now. Does that make sense, Ryan? Lots in the chat here. Kirsten can relate. I think you have to park your feelings and just make it about the child's experience. I can relate to that too, Kirsten. I think that you should, I shouldn't say you should. I think what I would try to do at this point in my life, it's definitely not what I did back in the day, but what I would try to do at this point is do both. I don't have to park my experience. I don't have to put my feelings on hold. I never want to see my child, I never want to display to my child to turn off their emotions or their feelings. I always want to show emotional maturity and the ability to process even through really difficult situations that might come up emotionally. That could be, Ryan says, that could be the link from my last reading from you. I'm causing part of the problem. I think it pieced it together. All about the children experience. Yes. Interesting, Ryan. Yeah. Maybe, right, brother? That would be cool. I remember that too. That was an interesting reading. That was at the end where it was like more stuff came through. But it's hard. It's hard navigating those relationships. Kids are hard. They're one of the biggest gifts in life because I believe what children do, they just amazing, right? But and this isn't like everybody that has kids is like, duh, yeah. But they bring with them that love. I know that I experienced a completely new level of love that I didn't even have awareness of existed when I had children. And with that new level of love that comes through, it's bringing with it an equal balance of pain and shadow and suffering and experience, because we get the full spectrum here. If we choose it, of course, right? We can always close down to it, but Ryan says, I want her out of my reality, yet she needs to be for the kids. So finding new balance. Yeah, Ryan, when I went through my divorce, it was incredibly challenging because, again, it's trying to prioritize everything around the kids, but then at the same time, and I can just tell you that it's not always going to get easier. I know that there's certain situations where it doesn't get easier with other partners and things like that. But I think if you give yourself the space to navigate what you're going through right now, because it's probably intense, because it's fresh in a sense and a lot of emotions and not a lot of clarity is a good way to put it, right? You're not having a lot of clarity around the situation right now. And unless you're forced to make decisions right now, which it doesn't sound like you are, then I would give yourself time for clarity, time to slow down, time to relax, time to open up to receive, or at least see and hear what other things and other paths and other ways. There's always other ways. That's why I think relationships are so important. I don't even think it's not to say like relationships are so important. It's like what it's all about. This whole experience, I think, is all about relationships. I quite literally think that's why we incarnate into the avatar. Have a good night, Ryan. It's good to see you, brother. Thanks for popping in. Tori, what's up? And it's fascinating too, with as important as relationships are, think about how crappy we are at them. We don't really have a lot of teaching when it comes to relationships, you know? We don't have a lot of experience when it comes to emotional communication, all of these different things that we really need, we just don't have. Insane Kitten says, 3 is the number that has haunted me for a long time now. I keep seeing 333. Why do you feel like that's haunting you, Insane? I don't feel like I feel like that's a good thing. Where I come from, that's a sign of synchronicity. That's a sign of creation happening. That's a sign that you're catching creation happening by seeing those repeating numbers and seeing that consistently. I think that's a cool thing. By the way, Tori, it's just open topics tonight. Throw anything up in the chat that you want to discuss, any questions that you might have, or anything that you want help on. That goes for everybody too, not just Tori. Kirsten asks, when have you felt closest to source? There has been a few times in my life where I felt like I have directly been in, like, no longer in this place, meaning no longer connected to this physical reality, but connected completely into the other reality, or dropped into source or into consciousness, or however you want to think about it. Those have come during some really deep spiritual experiences. There's a couple that I can think of where it feels, the feeling that comes with it, I kind of refer to it this way. What it feels like to me is dropping back into like the big love. It feels like suddenly feels like a coming home experience. It feels like suddenly you're in this big love, as opposed to, because we know about love here, right? Unconditional love and the love that we have for our children and all of these things. And then when you drop into like the big love and you experience that, it's completely different. It's a completely different just sensation and feeling. And I've had that a couple of different times. Again, like it's through some spiritual experiences. It very much feels out of body when it happens. I've also had it during times when I've been with people when they're passing. And that's been interesting to connect with people who are like in a coma and recognizing that, their avatar is laying there, but they're not. They're connected into another space. So I've had that experience before. When my uncle passed, it was before he had passed and he was in a coma. And I went to the hospital and sat next to him and held his hand and then just dropped into source space, like dropped into the space that I drop into when I channel and connect. And I could he was there. I was like, cool. He was there. He was happy. He was very bright. It was very much like the way that people look when they die. That's the way that he looked. He looked very healthy and very much like the vibrant version of him that he would come to me as. And I very much knew that he wasn't going to make it out of this coma at that point. It was like, oh yeah, he's passing away. He's going to die. And he was perfectly okay with it. Other times too, Kirsten, like when I go to the ocean, it's interesting. When I go to the ocean and I drop in, it's a different sensation and feeling. There's two different things that I almost want to describe. And it's funny too that I'm going to describe them as two, right? Two different things, even though they're not different. But that unconditional love, big love space that I was just talking about, yes, that. But then there's this other place that's a very void kind of feeling place where it's not to say that that big emotional releasing, big love kind of energy doesn't exist there. But in the void, it's almost a nothingness that exists there. It feels very, very different. And that I've experienced quite a few times as well. Again, through these deeper meditative spiritual experiences, but also at times when I'm just really still and quiet in nature, I can drop in and connect to both of those kind of spaces. I don't know if that makes sense or not. Insane, I'm so glad you're feeling different today. I think that's awesome. I'm sorry that you've had the trauma associated with that repeating number 3. That's so hard. It's good to hear that you're reclaiming it. Insane, I refer to the avatar as just this body. That's my reference as far as to the physical body, because I don't think that this thing is really real. I think it's a projection. So it feels real, but it's not, in my opinion. And that's not my opinion, that's my belief. Kirsten asks, looking back, were there times you see now as a psychic experience that you didn't recognize then? 100%, Kirsten. So many different times. Yeah. Big things like lucid dreaming. And I don't even know, I don't know if lucid dreaming necessarily would be considered like a psychic experience. It's, I think lucid dreaming in itself is like you're tapping in, right? You're connected to source during a lucid dream. Essentially, you're accessing something that's outside of consciousness. So like lucid dreaming and out-of-body experiences, as well as receiving information in downloads kind of ways. Once I had awareness as an adult that that's what was happening, because that happened to me, I'm trying to remember for the first time, I think it was around 2014 or 2015. I think it was 2015, actually. What's funny too is I can see the correlation and connection between, because the last time I got a really big, massive spiritual download was almost a year ago. It was right at the end of 2024, leading into 2025. And then not fast forward, but rewind to 10 years ago, I got the first time I had this really big, massive download experience where I feel like I connect to some other entity and just am bombarded with information and downloaded and like upgraded with stuff. That happened the first time to me in 2015. It might have been 2014 too. I have it in my journal, but the journal's from January 2015. And so it probably started, what's funny is it probably did happen around the same time. Anyways, just the way cycles repeat, right? Also, after I had those experiences, I could then look back and see how many different times I had had similar experiences as a child growing up. And what I found was those big pivotal moments when I feel like I experienced some sort of psychic spiritual experience in connection with some other energy, entity, guide, whatever we want to call it or refer to it as. Again, it doesn't matter to me what you call it. I use all of those different terminologies so that people don't think I'm speaking about one specific thing, right? I think we all have different names in the ways that we relate and connect with these things. But I think they happen during really pivotal times in our life when we need them the most. Source, unconditional love, your guides, they're always there. Like, they're not just taking a weekend off and being like, oh shit, sorry. Yeah, dropped the ball. They're always there. And they're there when we need them, not just the most. They're always there. But I think it's when we need them the most that we actually see them and hear them and are able to receive the information from them. Because again, looking back, I can see a lot of the times when I had those type of experiences were during very pivotal transition time periods in my life when I needed guidance and I needed help. So I've had a lot of those type of experiences, Kirsten. And then all of the things in regards to like visual, I mean, quite literally all the psychic experiences that I've had, telepathy, remote viewing, out-of-body experiences, mediumship, all of the things that I have experienced now as an adult, I can see that now through the lens differently. I didn't know that stuff growing up, but I very much see it now. So I've had all of it for my whole life. And I think we all do. I don't think I'm unique and alone here. I think it's very, very common. I think we all do. But it's like, it's having the filters removed. It's having the kind of blinders peeled back and seeing and realizing that, oh, that's what was actually taking place and happening. Like when you learn about the Akashic records and you learn about accessing the Akashic records and being able to access information in that way, I have a lot of experiences growing up when I would have dreams where it would feel like I was learning stuff or going to school or like being taken to some sort of classroom or like having these different experiences. And I see that all now through very, very different lenses than I did when I was growing up. Kirsten, I recently learned that I had a shared psychic experience about my sister. Wow, her partner had the same message. That's so cool. Insane Kitten, do you have some connection with 2015 and 2014 time period as well? Right, Mama Jess, it's awesome when you tap in and connect to these things. And there's a card in the deck that we talk about in here quite regularly. It's the 9 of whatever, right? It's just the 9. It doesn't matter what suit it is, even though that's important for reading cards. But the 9 is a reflection card. And I think it's massively important to do reflection work all the time. Don't just look back and see your life through the lens of like what you had to survive and get through. But it's really useful to go back and look at your life through different lenses and different time periods. And the more that I do that, the more I learn about myself today, because I'm learning about myself through a different lens. I'm having a deeper understanding of my life and my experiences as I've evolved and matured. And in doing so, they work in harmony with one another. So it's like I understand and then I evolve because of that understanding, because it helps me shift and change my programming. And then with new understanding and new awareness, I go back and I look at the same experience that I had, and that experience shifts and changes now to where I'm able to see it differently and process it differently, because now I understand even more of the program, which then evolves current version of me, and the cycle just keeps repeating and going and repeating and going, which I think is how we evolve. I think it's how we all evolve. What's up, Alexia? Alexia, we're recording the live podcast tonight, so feel free to drop any questions. It's just Q&A night. You get to pick the topics. Kirsten asks, what helps keep you connected? You said your gifts came in waves. Yeah, they very much did, Kirsten. I originally, woke up. I hate that terminology. I got to figure out some other way to refer to it as. But first stepping into the space and connecting spiritually and expanding and opening up, that was in 2011, 2012 time period. 14, 15, I start having those really big connections, and it's almost like the evolution of my spiritual awakening went up another degree. And all of those things led me down the path of just truthfully having to heal and become emotionally mature and having to process and deal with trauma and having to confront shadow and do all of those things. And the more I did that stuff, then the more I would say gifts, even though I don't like that term. I think they're just senses. I think they're all just access that we have. Truthfully, I don't think, this is what I really think. Are you ready? This is pretend. And the real version of us, the real us, is all of those things all of the time. So the more that I can heal this part and be aware of what this part is stuck in, that keeps me from recognizing that I'm really this other thing. And when I recognize and remember that I'm really this other thing, then I have all the access to all the other things that that thing has access to, because that's what I really am. And that thing has access to everything, because that thing is everything. It's all source. It's all unconditional love. So my spiritual practices become my daily practices. They're not just things that I set up. I don't go to the gym spiritually. I live a spiritually connected way of life. I'm in harmony with my body every day. I'm constantly aware of my breath and how my emotions are feeling. I'm tuning into my surroundings. I'm listening to what's good for my body and what's not good for my body. I'm doing all of this through the lens of unconditional love to the best of my ability, which takes a lot of practice. I'm also looking at things, I used to look at it as 5 gardens: emotional, mental, physical, spiritual, and sexual. Like all of these aspects of energy that we have to learn how to navigate and cultivate. And if we don't weed this garden, if we're not paying attention to the physical garden and addressing the physical garden, then it gets overgrown with weeds and affects the mental garden. And then that affects the emotional and the spiritual and so on and so forth. So it's learning how to navigate all of those different things. And it quite literally for me has just become a daily practice. So I'm constantly looking for opportunities to slow down and stay connected to my body. Yoga was a huge part of that for me. Yoga gave me a real direct connection with my physical body. And in doing so, that gave me the ability to even more so get into my nervous system and learning how to not just downregulate it, but acknowledge it. I had a day the other day where I woke up and I went for a walk with my buddy, had a great morning, and then it was just like, I couldn't get inspired to do anything. And I didn't force myself through making sure that I accomplished something that day. I recognized that I was tired. I recognized that I was irritable. I recognized that essentially my basic needs were not met because I did not sleep well the night before. So then all I did was allowed myself to sleep. Tori, that was incredible. I've never seen that one before. The Raving Snell, that was awesome. So that's what it is for me, Kirsten, is it's finding the things that help me stay connected to myself. And in doing so, that's helping me stay connected to source and to consciousness. Meditation is in there. And meditation for me, yes, is a daily practice. And sometimes it's sitting on my meditation cushion in full, like zenned out just after yoga meditation. And sometimes it's mindfulness as I'm outside, just quietly listening to nature and allowing my body to come out of my head, allowing my energy to drop into my physical body so that I can find just the silence that exists. Just looking for silence. When you get good at seeking out silence, holy moly, Gio, what is going on there with the bouquet? What's up, Gio? How we doing? But that's been the jam for me now. Especially in the last couple of weeks, I feel like I'm really going towards silence. I had a drive the other day. It was like a half-hour drive, and normally I would listen to some podcast, and I couldn't find something. I couldn't find something to listen to, and I was just like, and as soon as I turned everything off, it was just like, so peaceful. Just the silence of suddenly nothing. My nervous system just went, So it's weird. That's a new thing for me because my nervous system used to be so activated all the time that I had to have noise, right? If there isn't something going on, if I don't have something happening, then I can't handle that. That used to be the case. And that still is the case for me sometimes. That's the other big thing. If I could add on to like all the different topics that we've been talking about tonight, is it's a fucking circle. It's not linear. Healing is a circle. What goes around comes around. You're going to get the opportunity to continually experience and practice what it means to be human. And I think that's a huge lesson for a lot of us, because the linear way of thinking does not apply when it comes to healing. You have to allow yourself the opportunity to not just make mistakes, but to address things over and over and over again. Not out of failure, just out of practice. It's an opportunity every single time to learn more about yourself. Great questions, everybody. Gio, I'm so glad that you're digging it. Very grounding. I like to hear that. Mama Jess says, me too. Meditation is difficult for me, but it's so easy to reflect during a quieter moment. Mama Jess, when I'm in here reading cards, telling everybody to seek the silence at the top and bottom of their breath, that's me. That's my go-to. So when I want to slow down, I use my breath to do it. I do those big 3-5 deep breaths, or 3 to 5. Sorry, I shouldn't say 3-5. 3 to 5 big deep breaths, and shoulder raise up and relax and relax and relax. And usually by the 5th one, I have found enough silence that I can hold my breath at the end, meaning at the inhale. What do you know? There's some silence. And then I exhale, and there's some more silence. And just finding the rhythm between those two silences. Usually, I don't know if you can tell, I'm moving my hand back and forth, that rhythm, the wave pattern that takes place between those two breaths, the inhale and the exhale. That's like the metronome. That's like the beat of your heart. That's the thing that you want to find conjunction and rhythm with, the harmony and the sound of that and the peacefulness that exists there. In doing so, by seeking the silence at the end and at the beginning of your breath, the inhale and the exhale, you're tuning your frequency and your vibration down to a lower state where you're able to drop frequencies in your brain to drop into these lower theta and delta brainwave states so that you're able to access deeper layers of consciousness. So as always, I feel like breath, cheap and easy, my friends. When in doubt, breathe it out. Yeah, Donna, as always, right? You can catch this episode and all previous episodes of the Deep Blue podcast on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. Everybody go subscribe right now. Anything else? Anybody else? Throw up some questions if you want. We're going to wrap here in just a little bit. As always, go subscribe to the podcast wherever you can find it. We record these episodes live each Friday night, and then they'll get uploaded and posted. Oh, I have to shout out the podcast sponsor too. It's Woolly. I'm a huge fan of their clothing and their brand and everything else that they do. You can go to woolly.clothing/blue. It's in my profile. It'll also be in the link down in the description below. Save 15% off when you use promo code BLUE. But again, right now they're giving away tons of free stuff. They've got a lot of great holiday deals. So go show them some love and get some merino wool. Mama Jess, any advice for anyone getting back in touch with spirit? Absolutely. I feel like the best advice is always starting where you're at. So if you're getting back into it, what's exciting you about it? What's lighting you up about it? What's pulling you back into it? Let that thing pull you towards it. I often think about our highest self. They're pulling us towards them in the ways that they help us. All these things that you feel pulled towards, there's a reason for that. It's taking you towards your highest and greatest. It's taking you towards that path of unconditional love. So go towards what you're feeling pulled towards. The other really big thing, especially if you feel like you are getting back in touch with it, and maybe you've had a certain time period in life when you were in touch with it, or maybe you were more spiritually connected back during the day and had to go through the dark night of the soul, and now you're reconnecting to it later on in life. What I have experienced is as you evolve and change and grow, so will your capacity to connect in to energy. Also, what evolves and changes and grows is your perception of energy. So some of the things that used to, when I say work for me, some of the ways that I used to meditate, some of the ways that I used to access consciousness, some of the ways that I used to work with energy, when I would come back later on in life and reconnect to those, because things had changed in me and because I had changed, as well as my perception and understanding of what I was connecting to and working with. So give yourself the opportunity to evolve, and maybe what worked for you in the past or what you felt drawn to or connected to in the past might not necessarily still be the same for you. So as always, stay curious and just start where you're at. I do believe in astral planes, Insane Kitten, but I don't believe in them from the perspective of different dimensions or different planes. I think it's all a projection of whatever it is that we're wanting to create. It's really easy to think about it like virtual reality or a video game. So I go to sleep, I no longer play the Matrix. Now I'm playing some other version of the Matrix or some other reality that I'm creating in that moment to have an experience, to process things, to learn things. And I can create many, many, many different experiences depending upon what I need and or want. But all of those things that I'm creating are just instantaneously projections that I'm creating to have those experiences. And when I'm no longer in that astral realm or in that projected reality or in that projected moment, and now I'm over here in this projected reality and in this projected moment, that goes away. That other astral place only comes into existence when I'm projecting it. That's the same thing that happens here in this reality. It's no different. Right now, everything that I'm projecting and creating is only that let's see if I can get this out. Only the shit that I can see right now is what I'm rendering, is what I'm projecting. So everything that I can't visually see right now in the video game that I'm playing doesn't exist. It only comes into existence when I project it. And so it's the same thing with other dimensions, other realms, other astral experiences. They come into existence when you create them through projection so that you have the experience that you're creating. I hope that makes sense, Insane Kitten. Yeah, Minna, you're always sending love and light through the astral. I love it. Cian, thank you so much. What do you mean my take on mediums, Arcana? I feel like I'm a medium. I feel like we all have the capacity for mediumship. It's just tuning into a different channel and a frequency. I think they're 100% legit and real. These are great questions. Yeah, House Arcana, I don't even think it's something that we develop. I think it's innate. So I was talking about it earlier through this lens. It's the whole thing of, you're a spiritual person having a human experience. I genuinely believe we are just that piece of consciousness that has access to all of those different energies. And so that is always the case. And then we have all of these filters and all of these programs that are placed upon those things that keep us from that experience. So it becomes, how do I get rid of those filters and those programs so that I can access everything that I already have access to? So all of these energetic experiences, all of these spiritual experiences, all of these clairsentient, clairaudience, mediumship, all of these things, we all do. We all have capacity to do them. And it's not like, oh, if I just try hard enough or if I just work at it. When we practice them and when we're working at them, what we're really doing is removing the belief system around that these things aren't real. And that's what's important, is working on the program that tells you that these things aren't real or that you aren't this thing. As soon as you get to the core of like, oh yeah, I'm unconditional love, I'm an energetic being, projecting and creating my reality all the time, then it becomes a lot easier. Midna, happiness can be found even in the darkest of times if only one remembers to turn on the light. I love that, Midna. House of Arcana says, I have been scared to explore it because of the possibility of being wrong and offending someone. Boy, House of Arcana, I can relate 100%. Yeah, it's very, very challenging, right? I think what I would say, House of Arcana, at least my advice for you, whether you're asking for it or not, is if it feels like an area that you're feeling pulled to, I would go towards it, because I guarantee you're going to get something from it. What I mean by that is, like, if it's that thing where you keep wanting to go towards it, you keep feeling a pull towards it, or more, or even more so, you feel like they keep coming through in some capacity, then I think it's important to acknowledge. I think it's important to look at, and I think it's important to go to. Now, what you do with that and what that takes shape of and what it leads to, that's the journey. That's the opportunity to experience it and see what's next. And then just be really loving towards yourself, because again, the practice becomes getting rid of everything that you place in front of you in that other thing. You can really sum it up that way, where what do you have placed in front of you and your belief system, you and consciousness, you and the idea that there's this magical thing that exists out there that you're a part of. What's in between you and that? That's what has to be removed all the time. And it has to be monitored and it has to be maintained. Suddenly I got the image of it's like that little Zen garden that has to be kept in order. All the sand has to be leveled out, and you have to keep that spot clear so that you can maintain your connection to it. And if you allow things to clutter it up and create chaos in that space, then it's going to be difficult to communicate clearly with those things and with those energies and with that other side. So it takes time and it takes practice, and just be really loving with yourself. And I have found this platform, meaning TikTok and coming on in these community spaces that get created here, as just a beautiful place to experience it and practice it and connect to it. People are typically really, really loving and supportive. I love that phrase there, Kirsten. I've heard people say you're not developing it, you're remembering it. 100%. I feel like that's been the case with all of the spiritual experiences that I've had, or all of the energetic connections that I have, or just my capacity to tap in and connect with things is very much a remembering experience of it. That was the big key that unlocked everything for me when I started working with energy. When it came time to start working with it in regards to reading with other people and working with other people, the woman that was teaching me, she taught a class. It was this whole thing. I went through the process of getting certified in theta healing and blah, blah, blah. But it dawned on me at one point that what I was experiencing when I would connect with somebody and receive information worked the exact same way that it worked when I was a kid and I would imagine things. I could just close my eyes and suddenly I was somewhere else and imagination would take over. And it was it felt the same. It felt like I would be reading for somebody and the same imagination process would suddenly kick online and start taking over. And when I realized that it's the same, not just the same muscle, not just the same thing, but quite literally the imagination is source. And if there was a thing they'll find the brain one day. I don't believe this because I don't think our brain exists. Again, we're just projecting our creation, our reality. But there's a part of us that is uniquely designed to access consciousness. And I think that's our imagination. And I think that that's a very, very important thing to use and tap into every single day. The more I'm staying in my creative flow and in creation with my imagination, the more I can connect and stay in source energy and connection with energy. This has been awesome tonight, y'all. I really appreciate it. Thank you for hanging out with us, or thank you for hanging out with me. Go subscribe to the podcast again. It's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, everywhere you can find podcasts. Make sure to support it as well. Leave a review if you enjoy the podcast and share it with somebody. Yeah, Cian, thanks for hanging out with us. It's good to see you too, Tori. Yes, Kirsten, the sponsor, woolly.clothing/blue. Thank you for the reminder. Go score some merino wool. Legit, it's amazing. I wear nothing but woolly all the time now. Super healthy, non-toxic, incredibly comfortable, natural fiber. Thanks for the reminder, Kirsten. Coming in the clench there at the end. Everybody go have a wonderful night. Thank you so much. Blue Flower on Apple. Midna, the podcast is called The Deep Blue. That's the name of the podcast. It's The Deep Blue. If you just go to the profile, click on my profile, and in the link there, you can find it. Go click there and you can go subscribe everywhere. Jamie, it's good to see you too, Jamie. Good night, everybody. Have fun. Have a good night. Thanks for watching the podcast, and if you haven't yet, please click that notification button up top as well as subscribe so that you hear every new episode as soon as it comes out. And while you're at it, check out some of these previous episodes right here. Come join the conversation. We record the podcast live every Friday on TikTok. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you on the next episode.